Hi, I'm Olivia. Before the accident, life was a vibrant splash of colors on a canvas. Each day brought new challenges and inspirations. As a graphic designer, I thrived on the rush of creativity, shaping the visuals of major brands. It wasn't just a job, it was my passion and a way to leave my mark on the world. That fateful night, driving home from an exhilarating project launch, the road was slick with a light drizzle. My phone buzzed incessantly, clients or friends congratulating me. I glanced at the screen for just a second, but it was enough. Tires screeched, the world spun, and then blackness. Waking up in the ICU felt like opening your eyes underwater. Everything was blurred and distant. Tubes and machines tethered me to life, each beep and hiss a stark reminder of how close I'd come to the edge. The sterile smell of antiseptic mixed with the low murmur of nurses at their station. "Hey Olivia, can you hear me?" Dr. Nathan's voice cut through the haze. It was a lifeline in the fog. I tried to nod, managing only a faint twitch of my lips. Dr. Nathan gave a small, encouraging smile as he scribbled notes on his clipboard. As days blurred into nights, the visits began. My husband Michael came often, but his presence felt hollow. His usually warm gaze now just skimmed the surface, and his conversations were laced with impatience. "It's going to be okay, Liv. You just need to rest," he'd say, checking his phone more often than my monitors. Rachel, his sister, was even worse. Her visits were infrequent, but each left me colder than the last. She'd sit in the corner, her eyes darting around the room, never quite meeting mine. Her forced smiles didn't reach her eyes, and her words were clipped. "Glad to see you're still with us, Olivia. It would be such a hassle to sort through your things," she'd joke, her laugh as hollow as the click of her heels on the linoleum floor. One evening, as shadows grew long and the ward quieted down, Rachel slipped in after visiting hours. I feigned sleep, feeling her presence prickling the back of my neck. She leaned close, her breath cold against my ear. "You know Michael's life would be simpler without all this drama. We all think." Her words sent chills down my spine, echoing in the dimly lit room long after she left. I was trapped in my own body, unable to respond or defend myself. Each visit from Rachel left me more anxious, her thinly veiled threats weaving through my dreams. As my body fought to heal, my mind wrestled with the reality of my situation. The isolation of the ICU, punctuated by Michael's distracted visits and Rachel's chilling presence, was a stark contrast to the life I once knew. The accident had shattered more than just my bones. It had cracked the very foundations of my family life. The hospital's hushed corridors echoed with the rhythmic beeps of my heart monitor as the clock neared midnight. The silence pressed in on me, heavy with the weight of unsaid words and unfinished stories. Tonight, however, the stillness was broken by a subtle creak, the sound of my room door inching open. Rachel entered, a dark silhouette against the faint hallway light. Her movements were cautious and deliberate as she approached my bedside. The slight tremble in her hands was the only sign of her nervousness. She glanced around, her eyes pausing at the door before settling on the ventilator controls. "Always the lucky one, Olivia. But I guess your luck's run out," she whispered, her fingers hovering over the machine that tethered me to life. The click of the switch was almost inaudible. But to me, it was a gunshot in the quiet room. Panic surged as the steady hiss of the ventilator began to falter. I struggled to breathe, my chest tight with the effort to draw air. At that moment, the door burst open with a force that made Rachel jump. Dr. Nathan stood there, disbelief etched across his face. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his voice a sharp contrast to the dim quiet of the ICU. Rachel froze, her hand still poised over the machine. I was just," she stammered, unable to finish. "Security?" Dr. Nathan's shout filled the room. Within seconds, 2 hospital security officers rushed in, their presence commanding and immediate. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Security restrained Rachel, who kept repeating that it was all a misunderstanding. Dr. Nathan, meanwhile, stabilized the ventilator and checked my vitals, his hands steady despite the chaos. The aftermath was a storm of reactions. Nurses and doctors gathered, their expressions a mix of shock and outrage. Whispers filled the air, a cacophony of disbelief and concern. When Michael arrived, his face was a mask of confusion that barely hid his irritation. "Rachel, what have you done?" Michael's voice was low, tinged not with concern but with annoyance, as if this crisis were more of an inconvenience than a crime. "It's not what it looks like, Michael. I was just checking on her," Rachel's defense was feeble, her usual composure shattered by her own actions. Michael turned to me, then back to the chaos around us. "This is getting blown out of proportion," he muttered to Dr. Nathan, who was now giving a statement to a police officer. "She's family, but the severity of the situation can't be downplayed." The police took Rachel into custody, her protests fading as she disappeared down the hallway. The room settled into a new silence, one that spoke of averted tragedy and lingering betrayals. Dr. Nathan sat beside me, his look of deep concern briefly replaced by relief. I realized this was a turning point. The false normalcy of my marriage and Rachel's facade of concern had been shattered by her actions. This was no longer just about recovery, it was about survival and justice. As the days turned into weeks in the ICU, my strength slowly returned. Each breath became less of a battle. But with physical recovery came a stark clarity about my marriage. Michael's visits had become perfunctory, our conversations shallow and strained. The night Rachel tried to end my life had cracked something fundamental between us. His inability to grasp the gravity of her actions spoke volumes. Lying there, surrounded by the sterile walls that had witnessed my worst moments, I made the decision that I deserved better. I deserved someone who would stand by me, not explain away my near-death experience. Filing for divorce wasn't just a legal action, it was a declaration of my newfound resolve and self-worth. My lawyer, a supportive presence throughout this ordeal, guided me through the paperwork with gentle efficiency. "You're doing the right thing, Olivia," she assured me one afternoon as I signed another set of documents. Her affirmation was a balm to the raw edges of my decision. Meanwhile, Dr. Nathan became an unexpected pillar in my life. Our conversations, which had started with a focus on my health, branched into shared interests. We discovered a mutual love for art, often discussing our favorite painters and sculptures. He brought me books on graphic design and art history, and our discussions filled the room with a warmth that sharply contrasted with a clinical coldness. "Did you know Van Gogh sold only one painting in his lifetime?" Dr. Nathan asked one evening, handing me a book open to Starry Night. "I've always found that both inspiring and sad. It's like the world wasn't ready for his colors. It shows that sometimes the value of our efforts isn't recognized until much later," I replied, tracing the swirling blues and yellows with my finger. "It's a reminder that persistence is key." As my body healed, my heart underwent its own rehabilitation, mending from the betrayal with Dr. Nathan's steady companionship. The divorce proceedings, however, were a stark contrast to the healing environment of the hospital. Michael fought the divorce at first, his emails a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You're overreacting, Olivia. Can't we talk about this?" he wrote, but there was nothing left to discuss. His failure to stand against his sister's actions was a breach I couldn't overlook. The emotional turmoil of ending a marriage, intertwined with legal battles, was overwhelming. Yet with each passing day, I felt lighter and more certain of my path. My interactions with Michael became strictly through lawyers, and as the divorce neared its final stages, I found myself looking forward to the future. Dr. Nathan's support was unwavering, his presence a constant during my most challenging days. Our bond deepened, rooted in mutual respect and understanding, in sharp contrast to the battles I faced outside the hospital walls. This period of intense lows and unexpected highs had taught me the true meaning of resilience and the importance of having someone who genuinely cared for me. As I prepared to leave the hospital, I was no longer just a patient. But now, I am a woman reborn from adversity, ready to close the chapter on my old life and step into a new beginning with a clear heart and a hopeful spirit. 2 years had passed since the night that almost ended my life, and as I stood before a room full of hopeful faces, I realized just how far I had come. My recovery was complete, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Beside me, Dr. Nathan, now simply Nathan, my partner in every sense, smiled encouragingly as we prepared to lead another session of our support group. This group represented more than just survival. It was about thriving beyond trauma. I began, my voice steady and clear. Nathan and I had founded this support group for survivors of family-related trauma, a community we both knew was underserved and desperately needed. Each week, we met to share stories, support each other, and learn from our collective experiences. It was empowering to watch others draw strength from our sessions, reflecting the healing I had experienced myself. Nathan smoothly took over, his medical background providing a framework for our discussions. Healing is not linear, and it's certainly not quick. but every step forward is a victory," he shared. His words resonated with the group. Our relationship had blossomed through shared goals and dreams, our love a natural progression from the deep bond we formed in the darkest days of my life. Later, as we walked through the park near our home, Nathan took my hand. His touch was familiar and warm. "You've turned your experience into something beautiful, Olivia. You've helped so many," he said, pride evident in his voice. I squeezed his hand, reflecting on the journey from that terrifying night in the ICU to the challenging days of my divorce and the slow rebuilding of my life. Each moment had led me here. I had not only survived, I had transformed my pain into a tool for healing, both for myself and for others. "It's all been worth it," I mused aloud, looking up at the sky where the first stars of the evening were beginning to twinkle. The pain, the fight, the recovery. It all brought me here, to this new beginning with you, with our group. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." Nathan smiled, his love for me as evident as the stars above. "I can't imagine being anywhere else but here with you." Together we walked back home, our steps light and our hearts full. The challenges of the past were behind us, but they had shaped us and prepared us for a future filled with hope and new possibilities. My story was one of many, but it was mine to tell, a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of support, and the transformative magic of love. That's the end of my story. Now I have a question for you all. If you were in my shoes, would you be able to forgive someone who betrayed you during your most vulnerable moments, even if they were family? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you found this story moving, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Your support helps us continue to share these important stories and build a community of strength and resilience.